Good morning and welcome to Quest Television and Quest 93.1 FM, the station that goes beyond your expectation. Well, today is the 15th day in the month of August in the year 2023, a lovely Tuesday morning here in the studios. And I hope you're having a lovely Tuesday morning as well. With that being said, it's time for us to head straight into the newspapers and see what the headlines have for us. My name is Orikemi Mariam. And with that being said, welcome to the paper review on Quest. Making a return back to the studio this morning are four newspapers. We have The Nation, we have The Punch, the Daily Sun newspaper, as well as The Vanguard. And it is the second day in a beautiful week. You know I do not do this alone. With me this morning in the studio is a regular, the person you all know as Comrade Ife Odomo, our admirable Quest analyst. And well, you can fill in the rest of the gap. With that being said, good morning and welcome, sir.
Yeah, good morning, Miriam. I know you are looking very lovely this morning. And if I have to borrow a word from Lama, love and compassion are necessities, not more luxuries. And that is why humanity without love ends in zero. And that's why we are preaching love this morning.
Yes, we are preaching love indeed on Quest 93.1 as well as Quest Television. But with that being said, let's head straight to the papers and see what the headlines have. The first paper for review will be The Punch. And on the Punch newspaper this morning, the major headline states CBN clamps down on speculators and restricts diaspora remittances. The writer there says acting CBN governor meets Tinubu and predicts heavy losses for forex speculators. And also federal government records zero oil earnings in 7 months and Naira crisis may worsen. Do well to read all of this on page 19. If you're interested in the Naira slump. Moving away from that, we have on Niger, U.S. backs ECOWAS and demands more pressure on junta. The question now is, what does the U.S. have to gain in all of this? Well, do well to get more on that story on page 2 of The Punch. Bandits allegedly down NAF helicopter and kill 13 soldiers is making it to page 8 of The Punch newspaper this morning. Moving on, NLC protests proposed fuel price hike and threatens fresh strike is making it to page 2. But a lot of people can say that that was to be expected. We'll get more on that story on page 2 as I stated earlier. Diesel price hits 950 naira per litre and manufacturers fear job losses. It's making it to the front page as well. But you can continue that story on page 20. Federal government extradites siblings to U.S. for sexual extortion trial. And we can see the pictures of the siblings being extradited. We'll get more on that story on page 7. And also, Osun invokes no work, no pay for striking poly workers. Get more on that story on page 7. The picture of the day is quite an interesting one there. As it says, Ogun and Kebbi Customs seize ammunition, petrol, and foreign rice. Yes, we can see the pictures there. But get more on that story on page 4 and 5 of The Punch. And that's what you can take on the front page of The Punch newspaper this morning. The next paper for review is The Nation. And on The Nation newspaper, the major headline is talking about forex crisis. As I say, CBN likely to flood markets with dollar. The writer there says Tinubu okays Apex Bank's plans to stabilize currency volatility and how to strengthen the Naira is coming by some experts. The final writer there says CBN hammer to fall on speculators. The statement there says we do not believe that the changes going on in the parallel markets are driven by pure economic demand and supply, but are topped by speculative demand from people. Yes, like I said, this is a statement from to know who that statement is from, I'm not going to say much on that because I needed to go get those papers. You can read all of that on page 4 after reading on the front page of The Nation. Moving away from that, Otudeco and Otedola feud at center of FBN AGM is making it to page 5. And also NEMA warns of flooding in Lagos, Ogun, Ondo, and 16 other states. Do watch read all of that on page 3 as well. Moving on to page 7 of The Nation, it says marketers put petrol ex-depot price at 600 naira. And on page 6, Akeredolu's wife hopeful governor will return soon. Moving on, we have First Lady hails Super Falcons for superlative World Cup performance. Is making it to page 31, and that also stands as the picture of the day on the front page of the Nation newspaper. Moving on from that, U.S. pressures ECOWAS to pile more pressure on Niger junta. We have two writers there. The first says no to Bazoum trial, and also Akinyemi endorses action. Do also read all of this on the front page and continue on page 5. Air Force probes helicopter shot down claimed by bandits. The writer there says Kaduna-bound MI-171 chopper crashes near Zenguru. You can read all of that on front page and continue on page 4. The final headline on the front page of the Nation says custom intercepts ammunition stacked in 20 sacks in Ogun. It's making it to page 28 of the Nation newspaper. And that's much you can take on the front page of the Nation. The next paper for review is the Daily Sun. And on the Daily Sun newspaper, the major headline reads, military jet on rescue mission crashes. The writer there says flying to Niger State to evacuate soldiers killed and injured by terrorists. You can read all of that on page 4, but that is indeed a sad one.
Very worrisome, and
it's very worrisome. You can see that as the picture of the day there on the front page of the Daily Sun. You can see the crashed Nigerian Air Force aircraft at Niger State yesterday in Shiroro. But moving away from that, let's move to the story beside the masthead. It says Tinubu has crushed expectations of Nigerians, and this is coming from the ex-APC National Vice Chair. You can continue to read all of that on page 27. Moving on to page 6, it says drug hawkers and fruit sellers killing Nigeria silently, and this is a statement from the NAFDAC. Fruit sellers killing Nigerians. Well, get more on that. I'm sure a lot of people are asking, how are fruit sellers killing Nigeria? You can get more of that story.
They're everywhere.
Yeah, they're everywhere. You can get that story on page 6. Still on page 6, it says federal government raises flood alert in 19 states and 56 communities. NEMA has come out to put the warning out there alongside federal government. But like I said, do also read that story on page 6. CBN moves to halt Naira slide. The writer there says targets forex racketeers and unscrupulous bank staffs. And you can read all of that on page 25. We receive salaries without working, beneficiaries of job racketeering tells reps. More on that you can get on page 28. Moving on, customs intercepts 1,245 rounds of ammunition and 203 bags of foreign rice in Ogun State. You can read that story on page 4. Moving away from that story, panic grips motorists over anticipated fuel price hike. The writer there says queues return to filling station as NLC vows to ground country if price increases again. Quite a bold one there. Quite an interesting one right now. Everyone is affected by this, but do also read the story on page 2 and continue on page 27 of the Daily Sun. Court order CBN to pay 2.8 billion naira to 313 reinstated staff of the federal urban mass. Is making it to page 4. Comrade, I can see your reaction to that.
I walked there before. I go and check whether my name is there.
Okay, well, more of that story you can get on page 4, as I stated earlier. But that is the much we can take on the front page of the Daily Sun newspaper. The final paper for review this morning is the Vanguard. And on the Vanguard, the major headline reads, it's economic shutdown if petrol price rises again, says Labour. The writers there, we have quite a lot of writers, but I'll just take some of them. It says, accuses IGP, Justice Ministry, of hijacking duties of Labour Ministry. Also demands apology from IGP for arresting NURTW boss. Also says Labour Ministry may go extinct if, and also Tinubu is concerned about the economic hardship, says the presidency. Marketers urge federal government to tackle forex challenge. And the final writer that says pump price may rise next week. Do also read all of this on page 5 of the Vanguard newspaper. Moving away from that, we have federal government to revive and list moribund government assets on stock exchange. It's making it to page 19. Ondo, Delta, Sokoto, and 16 others to experience flooding in August, says NEMA. More on that story you can get on page 9. 50 bandits and 13 military personnel killed in Niger State encounter. Wow. You can read of that on page 6. And Niger coup is to prosecute ousted President Bazoum for high treason. Yes, the story is getting much more interesting, much more complex, but do also continue all of that on page 8. of the Vanguard. On the Naira slide, it says CBN moves to crack down on speculators. It's making it to page 20. Also, Gani Adams petitions Kwara governor and warns of looming religious war. That is something we do not want in Nigeria. We'll do also read all of that on page 13 of the Vanguard. Headsmen kill 2 teachers and injure 2 others in Plateau School. It's making it to page 6. And reps query jam over lopsided employment. Do also continue that story on page 9. On sports, we have Napoli puts massive release clause for Osimhen new deal. You can read all of that on page 30. And finally, we have the Mr. and Mrs. column.
Oh, yes,
to add
our
some
friends.
comic relief to all of these headlines we'll be getting on the front pages of all the dailies. Well, Mr. is speaking, but in this case, it is him and his friend. Mr. says, this economy has turned me to something else. My wife now foots the bills. And his friend is like, so what? What's bad in it? And Mr. now replies, instead of saying yes there, I addressed her as yes ma this morning. Yes, things are happening.
These guys can think.
Yes, well, for the picture of the day, it's quite an interesting one. We can see the headline there that says, soldiers beat up LASMA officials. But the story underneath it says footage is showing how men in military fatigues beat up LASMA officials in Lagos yesterday in reaction to the LASMA officials deserting their duty post in the Metro Police. And you can see more on that story on page 7. But the question, this literally now begs the question, is this the same story we are seeing on the social media space?
Your guess is as good as mine.
Well, comrade, your guess is as good as mine, because right now it seems as though we have 2 different stories on the same matter.
No, but Miriam, if the first story was to be actually true, then the motivational speaker who must have spoken with the last man on the first one must be a very real man. Otherwise, you cannot expect somebody in that situation to go and start whipping a soldier man in uniform. You already know your judgment. Well,
like Comrade said, I believe this story on the Vanguard newspaper is the real story. But you can continue all of that on page 7. Well, at this point, we've taken out the headlines on the front pages of all the newspapers I mentioned earlier, which is the Punch, the Nation newspaper, the Daily Sun, as well as the Vanguard. And at this point, I open the phone line so you could call into the show and have your say on the matters arising, on the headlines making the rounds on the newspapers this morning. The numbers to call are on your screen, and they remain the same. Since we've done bits to that already, our callers are eager to speak on the show. Let's take this first call. Hello, good morning.
Good morning.
Yes, welcome to the show. Your name and your location, please.
My name is Chief Ambrose Ajekpede JP.
All right, Chief Ambrose, welcome to the show. Have your say.
I'm calling from Ogele.
Have your say.
Okay, good morning.
Good morning.
My regard to Feodomo.
Oh, may the peace of the Lord be with you.
Amen, sir. Based on the headline of U.S. backing ECOWAS for more declaration of hardship on Niger. The question I want to ask here is this. What is the interest of the U.S. on the Niger as a republic? If I may advise, the ECOWAS shouldn't be a mercenary that the U.S. is going to use to have their aim or to achieve their goals. These people have been under captivity on exploitation without benefit. And the platform of the military stood up to say enough is enough. Now they are fighting for their personal interest. Because if I could flash back a past current senator of Edo State, Adam Soshomole, when I was in the University of Ekoma, he came to deliver a seminar and said, every platform of organization under the platform of nation has a force of an interest. And I am beginning to think that that is what the U.S. is all about.
All right. Thank you very much, Chief. But we have to take more reactions before we sign out from this segment. At this point, my PD is letting me know that we do not have enough time. So let's take 1 or 2 more calls before we move to comment.
Good morning.
Hello, good morning.
Good morning, ma'am.
Yes, good morning, sir. Your name and your location, please.
It's Mr. Friday calling from a governor.
All right, please make it brief.
Hello?
Yes, we can hear you. Make it brief.
Mr. Friday calling from a governor.
Mr. Friday, we can hear you. Please go straight to the point.
Okay, thank you. Talking about the looming religious war. I think that war is avoidable. We should avoid that for now. We have stomach war, hungry war in this country, economic war, social war, educational war. Those wars are overwhelm us. Let us not include the religious war that we.
All right, thank you very much. Well, at this point, we'll put a halt to the calls and move over to Comrade so he could just make one or two inputs on the headlines making the rounds. But Comrade,
Yes.
I want to talk about the looming or rather anticipated fuel price hike. We can see on the front page of the dailies right now this morning, being the Daily Sun and even the Vanguard, it says panic grips motorists over anticipated fuel price hike as queues return to filling stations, and NLC has vowed to ground the country if the price of petrol increases. Quickly, just react to this.
Yes, look, the fuel prices is becoming a different issue in Nigeria entirely. Maybe we have to have a different government that will run our oil sector, because almost every government that has come into power has always been dwelling on this fuel crisis, fuel issues. If you increase these prices further, motorists and the marketers will also, and when I mean marketers, the market women will also increase their own prices. And it boils down to the ordinary man that his income has not increased. And by the time you stifle these people to a point, it now becomes a survival of the fittest. And when you talk of survival of the fittest, you are pushing these people to the wall of negative reaction. And it is going to be a catastrophic situation for the country. Remember, war is a catalogue of blunders. And we should not continue in this our blunder in perpetuity. We should address this matter. There are other areas that the government can look into to make money, not only in this in fuel. Had it been Nigeria does not have fuel, what will happen in that place? What will happen if we don't even have fuel? The one we have is a punishable offense to us now. And we continue pushing these people, and nothing is further coming out of it.
Well, NLC has, they have said that they will ground the country. Do you think that is the right move on the part
It's not the right move at all. I have always said it. I've always said it is my recurrent proverb that if the devil seed that germinated and grew seeds last year, nobody harvested it. Why do we continue to plant such seeds anymore? All the strikes NLC has been going on, or has been embarking upon, which one has yielded fruit? The one they just finished just now, what is the result? I don't know whether you have a report on it. Up to date, I've not heard anything about it. I want to go into another one again. Don't you know that if you continue crying of wolf, wolf, wolf every day, and people will come, they will not say anything. Tomorrow you cry, they will not say anything. On the day the wolf will come, nobody will come here again. They will say it's your normal cry. So NSC should devise other means of going after these issues.
Well, Comrade, you have spoken like...
I've just wanted to mention briefly about the NAV crash.
Well, we don't really have time for that anymore, Comrade. I do look forward to having you tomorrow as usual. Thank you very much, our dear viewers and listeners, for sticking with the paper review. We know the time is short, but we will make time, we will increase time just for you. Have a lovely Tuesday, and bye for now.